Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Vagina Healing Podcast. My name is Nikira, and I am a vaginal health dietitian that frees women from recurring vaginal infections using holistic nutrition combined with nervous system regulation and subconscious reprogramming. Doctors and medications were not helping me when I was going through my episodes of recurring vaginal infections that lasted both times 2 years, so a total span of 4 years. So I learned how to heal myself twice without any medications or strict dieting. And that is the goal of this podcast, is to teach you guys as well how to heal your bodies from recurring vaginal infections if doctors are not helping you and if medications are not working. So this video is going to be focused on constipation, how to heal constipation, the effects of constipation on your overall health, but particularly your vaginal health. And last week, I was focusing a lot on gut health and constipation and colon health because one of my best friends growing up, her cousin that I basically also grew up with, like not in a close way, but I was really used to this cousin being around because that was like one of her favorite cousins. So she was always around. She recently passed away from a 5 year long battle with colon cancer at the age of 35. And so it kind of shook me to my core because for number one, I truly believe that she was going to heal because at first doctors gave her like a short time span to live, but she completely like surpassed that like by years. And so I really genuinely thought that she was on the road to recovery and that she was healing. And then I found out that she had passed, and it was really, really, really sad for me. And obviously, even more sad, sorry, for my friend and her family because they're a very close family. And so last week, I spent the whole week on my Patreon, which is my monthly membership, the Microbiome Makeover, where I give daily education. We have daily Q&A, and then we have a weekly live Q&A. The link to join that is down below. But basically, I spent my whole last week in the Patreon every single day giving education on colon health and on gut health in general, which can be technically the same term, and on constipation and how to basically improve your gut health, not just for your vaginal health, but also for your colon health to prevent colon cancer and other diseases and conditions of the GI tract or the colon, whatever you want to refer to. So basically, the notes I'm going to be using for this episode is going to be me reading you guys the post that I made on my Patreon every day last week. And I'm going to explain a little bit more on that. So, number one, when it comes to, okay, even before this, I'm going to go into some brief education on why gut health matters for vaginal health and why colon health matters. So a lot of people have heard of the gut brain axis, which is basically a bidirectional communication pathway in which the brain and the gut are in communication. That's why oftentimes conditions like IBS are linked to nervous system dysregulation. And that's also why you may get a gut feeling with stuff because your gut and your brain are connected. So there are multiple different axes in the body, not just the gut brain axis. There's the gut skin axis, there's the gut vagina axis, there's other axes, but basically how what you eat can impact your skin health, what you eat can impact your vaginal health because your gut and your vagina are in communication and the gut exchanges microbes with the vagina, um, and so, how you eat directly impacts your vaginal health, and not just that, but your vaginal area and your anal area and your urinary area, they kind of all share the same microbiome because they're so close together. So, they're always exchanging microbes. So, your anus and your vagina are exchanging microbes, and your urinary tract and your vagina, they're all exchanging microbes all the time. And so, what we eat directly influences the bacteria that shows up in our poop. And even if you're wiping from front to back, the bacteria in your anus, in your anal area, can still be exchanged with the bacteria in your vaginal area. I learned this from a podcast that's also focused on vaginal health. So basically, if you're pooping and you're getting rid of um, I believe it's like if you're getting rid of a lot of like harmful bad bacteria and it stays in that area, it can exchange with your vaginal area if your vaginal microbiome is not strong enough. Um, and something else that was important for that to be mentioned with. But basically, that is how your gut health can impact your vaginal health because your gut and your vagina exchange microbes through the gut vagina axis, and then also you exchange microbes with your anus area because they're all really close together. So, with that being said, how you eat also impacts your gut health because Well, number one, we're supposed to be pooping every single day, right? So pooping is a sign that our body is eliminating waste as it should. And so, even if you are pooping every day, it still is possible to be constipated. Now, the reason why constipation is an issue is because constipation means that you're not eliminating waste. Waste is things that our body does not need, including like excessive hormones, toxins, whatever. And so, if you're holding on to waste in your gut, you are harboring toxins and old hormones and bacteria that is supposed to be excreted through your waste, but you're holding it into your gut. This can cause for those toxins and those hormones that were supposed to be excreted through your poop to be recirculated back into your body. So, one of the main hormones that is supposed to be excreted through your waste, if it's in excess, is estrogen. And so, when you are constipated, you are holding on to excess estrogen in your gut, and that can actually get recirculated into your bloodstream and cause estrogen dominance. And it can also cause hormonal imbalances because estrogen works in harmony with other hormones. So, if estrogen is out of whack, your other hormones may be out of whack as well. Also, estrogen dominance is what leads to estrogen driven cancers like breast cancer or any kind of like hormonal based cancer, or even things like endometriosis, PCOS, any estrogen driven condition um, can be contributed to constipation. It doesn't have to be like the only main thing that causes it, but because constipation holds on to excess estrogen in your gut and excess hormones, and you're recirculating it back into your body by not pooping every single day, you can obviously see how that can be harmful. Another thing to keep in note is that just because you poop every day doesn't mean that you're not constipated. So I want you guys to look up what's called the Bristol stool chart, Bristol stool chart. It's basically a stool chart that can tell you whether you're constipated or not based off of how your stool looks. So there's 7 types. Typically, if you have type 1 or 2, it's either severe constipation or slight constipation. And when you have 3 and 4, that's good. And then 5 through 7 also can be caused by something else. So look at that stool chart, see how your poop is. If your poop is at 1 or 2, then you're constipated. If it's at 3 or 4, you're good. If it's between 5 and 7, it could be something else. But for now, we're focusing on people that either are not going to the bathroom every single day or they have type 1 or type 2 stools. So that's number one. You can be pooping every single day, but if you're not eliminating fully, whether like you still feel like you have to keep going, but you can't, or your poop is like type 1 or type 2, that is constipation. And so most people will jump to fiber, but there's other contributing factors or solutions that can help with constipation because sometimes fiber is not always work. And I'm going to give you guys my own personal experience. So throughout my life, I have dealt with constipation. So I would go like every other day or sometimes every 2 days. Or if I was going consistently every day, it was oftentimes type 1 or type 2. Sometimes it'll be type 3 or type 4, depending on if I ate more fiber. But when I ate more fiber, I felt really sluggish. I felt really heavy. I felt extremely bloated to the point where I looked pregnant. And guys, I'm not over exaggerating. Like, my friends can tell you, like, when I'm bloated, I can pass for being pregnant, like 4 to 5 months pregnant, like no lie. Um, so I obviously knew that was not normal. And I also have realized that when I don't feel safe in my body and when I'm nervous, I also won't go to the bathroom. So, nervous system regulation for me is huge because your body needs to feel safe in order to eliminate and in order for your digestive system to work. Because when you're in constant fight or flight mode or when you're stressed, your body prioritizes what it deems as the essential important organs, and it makes all, not all, but makes majority of the blood flow go to those organs like your heart and your brain, and it decreases the blood flow to the non-essential organs or systems like your digestive system, your reproductive system. So when there's a lack of blood flow to your digestive system, it's easy to get constipated because you're stressed and your body is prioritizing blood flow to other areas because your body wants you to survive, and is viewing the stress as something that is making you in danger, where it might be life or death. So the human body cannot differentiate between different types of stress. As long as you're stressed, it just sees you as stress and it thinks you're in danger, so it wants to protect you. So it'll make you hold on to your poop. It'll make you hold on to your waste. It'll disrupt your gut health because it wants to protect you. When we all know in reality, this is actually harming you in the long run. So I know that when I'm nervous or anxious or stressed in my life, it's harder for me to go to the bathroom. And then I also realized that even though I'm eating a lot of fiber, I'm still having a hard time going to the bathroom. So I'm like, something has to change. Something is not working for me, and I need to figure this out. And this is also recent. So this goes to show you guys that while I am a dietitian, I still do go through human experiences. I still do experience things like, even though I teach my audience certain ways of living and health advice and nutrition advice, I still go through things also. I haven't dealt with vaginal infections again, thank God, and I highly doubt I ever will because of how I am now. But I was still dealing with constipation on and off, even though I preach to my clients about fiber and about gut health and about pooping every single day. And I make sure that all of my clients go to the bathroom every single day, but I was still struggling with going to the bathroom every single day. And if I was going to the bathroom, I was still having type 1 or type 2 stools, and I didn't understand why, because I told you guys I eat good amount of fiber. And so I started looking more into this, and I realized I have a sluggish motility. Motility basically is like how fast your gut can move or process and digest foods. And I realized for me that my motility was sluggish. So basically, my body would process things at a way, process my food at a way slower pace. And I actually have seen that this is linked to having a fast metabolism, which you would think it's the opposite, but apparently it's not. So I have two separate episodes on metabolism and your mineral status and how that can impact your health. So check those out. But basically, my motility was sluggish because, and my intuition told me that it was. I just had a feeling that it was. I'm like, there's no way I'm drinking enough water, I'm eating all this fiber, but then I'm still having a hard time going to the bathroom. That it's slow or delayed. And so the breaking point for me was on Sunday when I was like, okay, I'm going to eat a certain way to make sure that I go to the bathroom. And so I had a really good breakfast. So first I start my morning off with warm water to help me go to the bathroom. So I have warm bitter tea. I'm going to explain bitters later in the episode. And so I had my bitter tea. Then I had my breakfast, which was, I had curry tuna salad. I had kale, and I also had eggs. I don't think I had anything else. Actually, before that, I had a yogurt bowl. So I had a yogurt bowl with chia seeds, honey, and fruit. And then right after, I had the curry tuna, eggs, and kale. And then after that, I had a cup of golden milk because I follow this other dietitian who said that for some people, they're not eating enough meal. I mean, they're not eating enough food, which is why they're dealing with constipation, because they're not giving their gut anything to push out essentially. So I'm like, okay, maybe I need to eat more. So I tried eating more, and I felt so horrible after eating all of that. Like my stomach was so distended. Like I literally looked like I was pregnant. Like I'm not even joking. Like it looked so bad. And then on top of that, I felt really sluggish and tired. I ended up napping after for like 2 hours. So I knew that I ate too much and that I crashed my blood sugar. And that day, I did not go to the bathroom. So I was already like annoyed, but I'm like, oh my god, like I thought this was good. I thought this was gonna work for me to go to the bathroom. And so I was so frustrated that I actually did not even eat dinner that night because one, I kind of felt sluggish, tired, and too heavy. And two, I was okay, maybe my digestive tract needs a break to process this food so that I can actually go to the bathroom. And so the next day, I ended up going to the bathroom first thing in the morning. So automatically, that kind of gave me the hint that maybe I need to space out my dinner time versus the morning time, as in I need to eat a little bit earlier in the day to give my body the time to work better so that I can go to the bathroom first thing in the morning. So number one, me eating a earlier dinner because I still ate that day, but my last meal was at 5. I just finished the remaining half of my breakfast. So I skipped this part. I didn't eat the full curry tuna with eggs and kale. I ate half of it at that time, and I ate the other half around like 5 p.m. And so for that day, I stopped eating at 5 p.m. And the next day, I was able to go to the bathroom first thing in the morning. So I was like, oh, okay. So my body just needed more time to process food because I usually eat kind of late, like around 7 or 8, and then I'm in bed at like 9, 10, or 11. So I obviously, like when you're laying down right after eating, it can kind of slow down your motility. So I was like, oh, okay. So one, I can already see that me eating earlier um, is going to help my body process the food properly so that it can actually work faster. And so that was number one. So I was also looking this up myself, and I also came across a group of foods called prokinetics, which I've heard of before, but I never really looked into it. And basically, prokinetics are foods that can help okay, it can help your gut to basically move things quicker. So it's not like a laxative, but it helps to basically move food from your stomach to your small intestine faster, so that if you have a sluggish motility, the food is not sitting in your stomach and fermenting. Because if that happens, that's what causes really bad smelly gas or really excessive bloating. So for me, I was like, okay, so if that's the case, I'm going to add in prokinetics as well. So an example of prokinetics that's really popular is ginger. So ginger basically helps to, it kind of acts like a broom to sweep things out of your stomach into your small intestine so that it's not sitting and fermenting and rotting in your gut that can cause really bad smelly gas or really bad bloating. Something else I forgot to mention also is that something in my intuition was telling me earlier in the week to cut back on my starches, not because of any type of food fear around starches, but I felt like starches were my problem specifically because of the fact that I have a fast oxidizing profile, aka a fast metabolism. So again, listen to the episode if you want to learn about how to eat for a fast metabolism. But basically, if you have a fast metabolism, you should be prioritizing high protein, high fats, and low carbohydrates. So technically a keto diet, because your body has a can digest carbohydrates really, really fast, but also can have what's the other? I forgot how like the correlation, but basically your body can digest carbs really, really, really fast. But when it comes to starches, you may have a lower stomach acid and lower enzymes in a fast metabolized body. And so when you have low stomach acid and you have low enzymes, this can slow down your motility because stomach acid helps you to break down food, and so do your enzymes. So if you have low stomach acid, your stomach is not able to break down the food properly. So the food can sit in your stomach and kind of ferment and rot longer than it should. And it can feed it can feed bad bacteria or fungi, or it can feed opportunistic microbes, which are basically microbes that overgrow when they have the opportunity to. So you can feed opportunistic microbes. You can also feed bad microbes when food is sitting in your gut and fermenting and rotting. And so because I have a history of low stomach acid and low enzymes due to me having a fast metabolism, my gut is naturally has slower motility. So I forgot what I was saying before that. So starches are typically harder for some people to digest and break down. And usually I always get the most bloated when I'm eating starches, especially a really big starchy meal. And so because I had ate so much in a short period of time, on Sunday, number one, I overloaded my digestive system. Two, not that it was a starch heavy meal, but it was a lot for my body to break down at once. The main starches I had in that meal was the chia seeds, watermelon, and pineapple that was in my yogurt. Um, and then my meal itself didn't have any starches, but my body was having a really hard time breaking down all of that food. And so I felt really, really horrible after. And in general, when I eat starches, I get really, really, really bloated. And so my intuition was telling me to cut back on starches. And so I decided that I'm going to just increase my non starchy fruits and veggies, focus on protein and fats, and really decrease slash minimize my grains, seeds, my grains, nuts slash seeds, and legumes. So don't get this confused with what I teach about vaginal health, because I do encourage women for vaginal health to eat grains, legumes, and nuts slash seeds because it is important to build a diverse gut microbiome. But obviously, everything in moderation. If your body can handle more, larger amounts, perfectly go for it. That's fine. But if your body cannot handle large amounts, you can still eat it, but in smaller amounts. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm just switching to non-starchy fruits and vegetables, not strictly because if I'm out, I will get something to eat that I want. So I'm not going to be like rigid about it. But in my own control of me cooking my own meals, I'm going to prioritize non starchy fruits and veggies, and I'm going to minimize my grains, legumes. The only seed that I eat is chia seeds because I don't like flax or hemp seeds or pumpkin seeds. So I'm not worried about seeds. I also don't like nuts. I'm not worried about nuts either. So I know for a fact grains and legumes, I feel the most bloated and I feel the most heaviest and I feel the most sluggish. So I'm just going to decrease and cut back and focus on other plants because I have a lot of herbs I incorporate into my diet, and herbs do count towards your plant diversity anyway. So I have herbs, I have hella fruits, I have hella veggies. So I'm good with just these three things to focus on. And so, number one, my intuition told me to cut back on starches. Number two, because I ate earlier in the day, I noticed I was able to go to the bathroom first thing in the morning. So now I know to eat dinner earlier. Number three, I incorporated prokinetics, which is ginger. So I already have ginger shots every single day. And one of the things I teach my clients is to have ginger shots when dealing with current recurring vaginal infections because ginger and turmeric help to rebuild your immune system and can fight inflammation. So I always tell my clients when you're dealing with recurring vaginal infections to support your immune system, incorporate ginger, turmeric, black pepper shots every single day. And so I also do this. So what I would do is I would have it first thing in the morning or right before bed, but I've been incorporating like a swig after each meal. And I would also have a shot or a ginger turmeric tea 2 hours after my dinner. So basically, what I had learned was that prokinetics can work best 30 to 60 minutes before your breakfast. And then also 2 hours after your dinner to ensure you can have a morning bowel movement. So I was like, okay, so in the morning, I already drink a bitter tea, which I'm going to explain bitters next. So I'm going to introduce the prokinetic 2 hours after dinner. So at this point, I'm like, okay, cutting back on starches. I'm going to eat earlier in the day, like my dinner earlier. And I'm also going to have a ginger shot 2 hours after my dinner. And so that is what I did. And before I even give you guys the results, I'm going to explain what bitters are because the main things that you should be focusing on for healing constipation outside of fiber is your hydration, your movement, bitters, and prokinetics. So, bitters now, I have a whole YouTube video on constipation actually that doesn't even go into half of what I talk about in this episode because I have learned more since then. But basically, bitters are any kind of food or herb that is bitter so that way when bitter hits your tongue it stimulates your digestive enzymes and your saliva to kickstart your whole entire digestive system. So basically when you salivate it's kind of like turning on the switch to your digestive system because when you salivate you produce enzymes in your saliva called amylase. This helps you to break down starch. Once you start producing more saliva it turns on your stomach to produce more stomach acid. Once your stomach produces more stomach acid, that turns on your pancreas to basically produce digestive enzymes. So you see how it's kind of like a downward cascade, like a domino effect. You salivate, which helps you to produce more stomach acid, which helps you to produce more digestive enzymes, which you all need for proper digestion because these things help you to break down your food. If your food's not being broken down properly, it's going to get stuck longer in places where it shouldn't, and you're going to have sluggish motility, and you can deal with gut health issues as well as motility issues. So bitters basically helps to kickstart your digestion. And so you have bitter foods like arugula, dandelion, um, whatever bitter food, even if it's a cultural food, if it's really bitter, it's a bitter. You also have bitter supplements, like I have bitter drops in my full script storefront that I use. What I do recommend is if you want to choose your own bitters, just make sure that it doesn't have senna or a laxative in it because that defeats the whole purpose of the bitter. Like for example, Swedish bitters has senna in it, and senna is a laxative. So you don't want to use laxative because laxatives can force your gut to work. It doesn't actually support your gut to work. It just forces it, like it forces it to contract. So with bitters, you can either choose to incorporate more bitter foods, a bitter supplement, or you can incorporate herbal bitter teas. So for example, if you're West Indian, and you drink mabi, mabi bark is extremely bitter without sugar. So I'm West Indian. So what I do is I have mabi. I boil mabi every single morning, and it's really, really, really bitter. And I also add a tiny spoonful of yellow dock, which is another bitter herb because it's really bitter, and also it helps with motility. It helps with constipation. It's also really high in iron, so it can support iron levels. And so every morning I drink mabi tea with a little bit of yellow dock. And so number one, it's bitter, so it's going to help with activating my enzymes, my stomach acid. And then number two, um, having a warm fluid on an empty stomach can also help get things moving for you. So with bitters, it's important to consume them 15 minutes before a meal. And so I will have a cup of bitters first thing in the morning, 15 minutes before my meal. And it tastes horrible, but after a while you get used to it, it doesn't really bother you. And so then I'll eat my meal. So basically, what I did Monday and today, I did my bitters. I waited 15 minutes. And then I also realized that me combining fruits in my yogurt bowl can be causing my motility to be slower because fruits are fast digesting while yogurt and chia seeds are more slow digesting because it has fats and protein. And so combined together, for some people, not everybody, it can slow down their motility. So I was reading that and I was like, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my bitters. 15 minutes later, I'm going to have a bowl of fruit. And then 15 minutes later, I'm going to have my yogurt bowl. So that's going to be like my breakfast. So that's what I did. So I had that. For fruit, I had a really small bowl of watermelon and pineapple. And then 15 minutes later, I had yogurt with chia seeds and honey. And then, like 3 hours later, so throughout the day, I was kind of eating like every 2 to 3 hours, um, or maybe every 3 hours. It doesn't matter. Either way, so I had my lunch. I had like my savory breakfast, which was my curry tuna salad, my eggs, and my kale. So this meal I also split up because I use one full tuna can, I use a handful of kale, and I use 2 eggs. So I'll eat one egg, I eat half the amount of kale, half the amount of tuna, and then I'll eat the other half like a few hours later, whether it's like 30 minutes later, an hour later, 2 hours later, I eat the other half later. And then Monday, I kind of didn't feel like eating anymore for the rest of the day, so I stopped. And Monday, I was able to go to the bathroom twice in one day. So what this showed me was that one, obviously bitters do work. Number two, spacing out your meals makes a really big difference. And not just eating really large meals at once for someone who has a slower motility. So if your motility is not slow, you don't have to worry about that. But if it is, spacing out your meals can make a big difference. So one, I spaced out my meals. Two, I had the bitters 15 minutes before my meal. And then three, the last thing that I had after dinner later on was a ginger turmeric shot. And I was able to go to the bathroom twice. So basically, bitters, prokinetics, spacing out my meals, and I also focus a lot on chewing more thoroughly because when you chew your food into mush, it can help your body to digest it better. And I also really practice smelling my food before I eat because that can also help you to salivate. So these are all just mindful things that you can do. You don't have to do all of them. You do whatever resonates with you. But I'm practicing more mindful eating, so that's why I'm giving all these tips. And so I was able to go to the bathroom twice. I also do drink half my body weight in fluid ounces every single day. So I drink around 80 fluid ounces a day, which is also really important to help keep things moving. I was not that physically active on Monday. So I basically attributed me going to the bathroom because I ate dinner early on Sunday. So it gave my body enough time to process the food. I had the bitter first thing in the morning. Then I had the fruit bowl. Then I had the yogurt bowl. And then a few hours later, I had another split meal. And so I gave my body time to process the meals while supporting it through bitters and the prokinetic. And so I'm going to teach you guys later on in the episode why spacing out your meals can help because of something called the MMC. So that's basically my own story with constipation. And so today I did the same thing as well. And I was able to go to the bathroom twice again today, which is great. So, because usually if I go regularly, it's once a day. And so the fact that I'm going twice a day shows me that I'm doing the right thing for my own body. So that's why nutrition is very individualized because what may work for one person may not work for somebody else. So that's really important that you're not just following tips online from just anybody and from anything. You have to do what works with your body and what is in alignment with your body. So that's my whole story on constipation and how I personally have naturally healed and alleviated mine by doing things for my own body. And so now to go into the post that I have been teaching on my Patreon for the past week on colon health and why you need to be doing these tips to help improve your colon health, but it also overlaps with improving your vaginal health. So number one, we have fiber. So fiber is one of the biggest keys to healing your vaginal health and protecting your long-term health overall. And so, because your vaginal microbiome is connected to your gut, and your gut depends on fiber, prebiotics, probiotics, and resistant starch, it's really important that you are having enough fiber. So, women need 25 grams of fiber in a day, but with fiber, you have to add it in slowly and gradually because if you add too much fiber at once, like what I was doing, which I teach the opposite of, which is crazy that I was doing it, but it can basically cause you to feel really sluggish, heavy. It can actually cause constipation and make you just not feel good. And so, what fiber does is fiber helps to feed your beneficial bacteria. It supports regular bowel movements, which elimination is key to healing your body. It can bind and remove excess estrogen and toxins in your body. And it also reduces the amount of time that waste sits in your colon. Because when waste sits too long in your colon, it can increase exposure to harmful compounds. So, fiber helps to move things efficiently, lowering that risk. And so now when it comes to prebiotics, so prebiotics are specific fibers that feed your good bacteria in your gut. So without them, probiotics don't survive. So some examples of prebiotics are fruit skins like apple skin, pear skin, certain vegetables like scallions, leeks, garlic, onions, and shallots. And also oats, legumes. These are all prebiotic fibers. So prebiotic fibers help beneficial bacteria to thrive, which are probiotics. So it helps to maintain a healthy colon environment. Then you have probiotics. So probiotics are beneficial live bacteria like lactobacillus that help to maintain balance in the gut and crowd out harmful bacteria and reduce inflammation. And so a balanced microbiome helps to prevent the overgrowth of bacteria that can produce harmful byproducts linked to colon damage. So every day I take a spore-based probiotic and I also take a vaginal probiotic. And these two probiotics I actually have in my free vaginal healing supplement guide, and it explains the benefits of those two probiotics. Then you have resistant starches. So resistant starches are are really powerful for colon protection because they basically produce something called short chain fatty acids, which are protective compounds for your colon. So um, sorry, resistant starches that produce short chain fatty acids, it basically helps to fuel your colon cells. It reduces inflammation in your gut lining. It can strengthen your gut barrier. It can help to regulate healthy cell turnover, and it can help to prevent abnormal cell growth, which we know is colon cancer or cancers in general. So it's huge for reducing colon cancer risk. And basically, resistant starches are starches that have been cooked and cooled overnight. So any starch, whether that's a grain or a legume or even green bananas, these when they're cooked and cooled overnight, green bananas, I don't think they have to be cooked, but double check on that with Google. But basically, when you cook and cool these things overnight and eat them the next day, yes, you can still reheat them and they'll still be a resistant starch. They basically go through a process called retrogradation, I'm pretty sure it's called, and it turns into a resistant starch, meaning that it completely bypasses your digestion and goes directly into your colon where it basically feeds the good colon, your colon cells. And so when you eat this way, your gut bacteria produce more protective compounds, inflammation and disease risk in the colon decreases, harmful bacteria are kept in check, and your gut lining stays strong and intact. So this creates an environment where disease is much less likely to develop. And so this connects directly back to vaginal health because when your gut is balanced, your estrogen is metabolized properly, your inflammation is lower, your immune system is stronger, and your vaginal microbiome is more stable. So these things can help you to prevent recurring VV, yeast infections, and chronic vaginal imbalances, as well as protect your colon from colon cancer. So it's not about just fixing symptoms, it's about building a body that stays in balance long term. And so, just to revisit this topic, but this is not to say that only a lack of fiber can contribute to colon cancer. It can, but that may not be the case for everybody because there's also different factors that can contribute to colon cancer, but fiber can just help to protect and maintain the colon. And so, number one, if you're dealing with constipation, besides what I talked about before with bitter foods, prokinetics, hydration, and movement, also look in your diet if you have enough prebiotics, if you have enough probiotics, if you have enough resistant starches. And with these foods, introduce them in slow amounts and not too much too fast. Also, if your fiber is lower than 25 grams a day, you want to gradually increase it to 25 grams a day. And when you increase your fiber, you have to increase your hydration because otherwise it can cause you to be sluggish. So make sure that you're drinking half your body weight in fluid ounces. Let's see. Now, the next post is basically going over how fiber is one of the most important nutrients for women's health because it directly impacts your gut health, your hormone health, your vaginal health, and long term disease risk. And then I basically said when fiber is low, you're more likely to experience constipation, gut imbalance, recurring vaginal infections, and poor estrogen detox. So fiber feeds your good gut bacteria, which helps to regulate inflammation, immune function, and estrogen, which all impact your vaginal microbiome. So when your gut is supported, your vaginal microbiome is more stable. I'm thinking of what else to say. I don't want to keep repeating myself. Let me see. So signs you're increasing fiber too fast is if you have really bad bloating, sharp gas pains, or constipation or loose stools. If this happens, pull back slightly and increase more gradually. And a tip to increase fiber step by step is by one, start where you are and build. So maybe right now you add one fruit per day. Maybe you start off with adding one serving of vegetables to a meal. Maybe you start off with including beans or lentils a few times per week. Or you swipe refined grains for whole grains. Or maybe you just add chia or flax seeds. Any of these can be a good start for you adding in more fiber. So I would start off with one of these things, get used to it for like maybe a week or two, or whenever your body feels like you're good with it, then add something else. And you can basically increase every 3 to 7 days, but not everything overnight. But follow your intuition and follow your body. Then I go over the 5 fiber food groups, which are all carbohydrates. These are fruits, veggies, legumes, whole grains, and nuts/seeds. So you want variety of these because different fibers feed different bacteria. So the more diversity you have in your diet from these plants, the more diverse your gut microbiome, the healthier and stronger your gut, which then influences how strong and healthy your vaginal microbiome is. Something else that's also important to note are different types of fiber. So you have soluble fiber, you have insoluble fiber, you have resistant starch, you also have prebiotic fibers. So soluble fiber helps with blood sugar and cholesterol levels because excess cholesterol is excreted out through your waste. So if you have high cholesterol, you want to incorporate more soluble fiber. If you have any blood sugar issues, you want to have soluble fiber with all your meals. Insoluble fiber supports regular bowel movements. Resistant starches feeds deeper gut bacteria and produces short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Prebiotic fibers specifically feed beneficial bacteria. So when you constantly get enough fiber, your digestion improves, your hormones balance, your microbiome becomes more diverse and stronger, your vaginal health stabilizes, and your colon is protected long term. And so, just to mention to you guys, I do have a free 7-day fiber challenge that's in my link trees. If you want to check that out, you can. It's completely free. Um, and now to move on to the third post I made. So this post is talking about plant diversity, and it's going to go over how to do it and the benefits of it, like I just kind of briefly mentioned. So with eating a variety of plants, because different plants feed different bacteria and your microbiome thrives on diversity, it's important to make 30 different plant foods a week your goal. And at first this may seem overwhelming, but it's way easier than you think. So if we know oh my gosh, if we know that the 5 fiber food groups are fruits, veggies, legumes, whole grains, and nuts/seeds, then you basically want to have 30 of these in a week. And also herbs and spices can also count. So the reason why this matters is because a diverse gut microbiome helps to regulate estrogen, reduce inflammation, strengthen your immune system, support lactobacillus dominance, which helps to support a protective vaginal bacteria, and more diversity equals more stability for your gut. So this makes it harder for things like BV, yeast infections, reoccurring imbalances to keep coming back. And for colon cancer prevention, plant diversity helps to increase production of short chain fatty acids, which protect your colon, reduce inflammation in your colon, support healthy cell turnover, and crowd out harmful bacteria. And so, an easy way to incorporate 30 plants per week practically is by having one different fruit every single day. So, choose one fruit to have each day of the week. So, maybe Monday you have berries, Tuesday, apple, Wednesday, banana, Thursday, mango, Friday, an orange, Saturday, pineapples, Sunday, grapes. So, that in itself is already 7 different plants. Next, when it comes to veggies, using frozen veggie blends or just veggie blends in general that have more than one veggie can be really helpful. So instead of you focusing on just eating kale, you can do a single mixed veggie bag that has broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, and green beans. That's 4 plants in one meal that you can incorporate into your meal. Then when it comes to legumes, you can rotate between lentils, chickpeas, black beans, and kidney beans. And you can also lentils, chickpeas, beans, and peas. And you can rotate between the different colors of these fruits, veggies, grains, legumes, because the more colors you have in your gut, the more diversity also. Because each color in these plants are different antioxidants. So, for example, instead of you doing just kidney beans, you can also find those 10 to 15 bean mixes. So they have like a 10 bean mix, 15 bean mixes, so that way you're getting 15 different plants or diversity of a plant in one package. So that can be really helpful. So rotating legumes throughout the week. You can also mix up your grains. So a lot of people mainly eat rice as the main grain, but you have quinoa, you have pearls barley, you have millet, you have oats, you have rye, you have like there's so many different types of grains. So I recommend that people try new grains and try recipes to incorporate these new grains. So I love pearl barley as a hot cereal with some ghee and some milk and some honey. I also love steel cut oats the same way. And so you can try those out. I do have a recipe for that in my 5-day vaginal healing ebook, meal plan ebook. I also have a recipe for it on my TikTok page. So you have the recipes there. So diversify your grains and the colors in your grains. And then also when it comes to nuts slash seeds, you can get seed mixes that have like chia, flax, pumpkin, hemp. That's 4 different plants. You can also get nut mixes that have like almonds, pistachios, walnuts, that's 3 different nuts. So you can notice that when you add these things all up, it can easily get you to 30 plants in literally a day, but you need 30 plants in a week, which is what's really important. Then when it comes to herbs and spices, you can use like garlic, onions, turmeric, ginger, and whatever herbs you drink. Like for example, every day I consume maca root, I consume shatavari root, I consume schisandra berry, I consume raspberry leaf, nettle leaf tea. So these all count also towards plant diversity. So they all count and feature microbiome in different ways. And so that's why I always tell people when you're trying to work on your nutrition, think about where you can add foods versus subtracting and restricting. The only time I ever make somebody restrict or take away something is if their body's not tolerating it well, or if they're allergic or they can't have it. So instead of removing foods for healing recurring vaginal infections, focus on adding variety. And when you consistently eat this way, your gut becomes more diverse, your hormones regulate better, your vaginal microbiome is more stable, and your colon is protected, which is one of the best, most simplest ways to upgrade your health without any extremes. So really focus on diversity. Okay, this post, let me see if I should go over it. Okay, so I'll go over this post. This post basically is talking about why you should be having a bowel movement every single day. I'm going to go over some things that I may not have touched on. We're talking about it earlier. So let me see. Okay, so something else that can happen when your stool holds on, sorry, when your colon holds on to stool for too long, is that methane production increases, which can cause really bad smelly gas and also slows your motility even more. And also, as you guys already know, it can cause bacterial overgrowth, toxin buildup, things like that. And so, a healthy range for bowel movements is to have 1 to 3 bowel movements a day. And in the Bristol stool chart, you basically want them to be type 3 to 4. And so type 1 to 2 can suggest low fiber, dehydration, or slow motility. For me, it was slow motility because my fiber was good and my hydration was also really good. Types 5 to 7, which can be soft blobs or watery, can indicate poor absorption, gut irritation, or imbalance. So your stool can act as a feedback for you. So it can tell you what is going on internally. So what helps, like I told you guys, adequate fiber. There's 25 grams fiber in a day. Proper hydration, so half your body weight in fluid ounces. Movement, because movement helps your gut motility. So walking for 15 minutes after your meals can not only help with your blood sugar stability and weight loss, but can also help with you going to the bathroom. And then also nervous system regulation, because stress slows down your motility, which I told you guys already. So movement is really important. If you're sedentary, like you have a job where you're sitting down all day long or you're not really moving, you want to start incorporating more walks into your routine, at least 7K steps a day, but you don't have to get that right away. Slowly and gradually build your way up to 7K steps a day. But that's basically how you can incorporate more movement into your routine. Now let's go to the next post. So now this post is talking about probiotics. And so I didn't give you guys more examples of probiotics and when I was talking about it from the last post. So basically, prebiotics and probiotics, they work together to produce postbiotics. So probiotics feed on prebiotics, and then once it feeds on the prebiotics, it basically produces a quote unquote waste product. Not really, but it's called postbiotics. And so postbiotics are basically the results. So these are the compounds your bacteria produce when they're well fed. And so postbiotics produce short chain fatty acids, anti inflammatory compounds, and they produce antimicrobial substances. And so this comes when you eat pre and probiotics. So you know examples of prebiotics already. Probiotics are basically fermented or live foods. So probiotics can come from yogurt with live cultures, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, kombucha. And probiotics also play a really big role in your mental health as well. And they basically act like a security guard for your gut. So they ward off anything that's harmful or any opportunistic bacteria. So they basically help to crowd out anything that's harmful in your gut and helps to maintain an acidic vaginal pH, which your pH should be between 3.8 to 4.5 in order to prevent recurring vaginal infections. Now, when it comes to postbiotics, so with postbiotics, you don't necessarily eat them directly, but you create them by eating enough fiber, including resistant starches, and also feeding your microbiome consistently. And so these help your bacteria to produce compounds that protect your colon and your vaginal health and reduce the risk of recurring vaginal infections and colon issues like colitis, colon cancer, other colon health issues as well. So when you are taking a probiotic, it's important that you are also eating prebiotic foods so that way the probiotic can actually do its job way more effectively. Let's see. Okay. And so today's post, which is the last post I'm going to go over, is basically talking about um, how if you're still constipated and fiber is not working for you, it can also be hydration, movement, digestion, and gut motility. So we talked about movement, we talked about hydration, we talked about digestion and gut motility. And so I'm going to explain a few things in here that I did not go over. So without enough fluid, stool becomes dry, hard, and difficult to pass. So fluids don't just come from water, but it also comes from mineral-rich fluids, coconut water, decaf herbal teas, milk. These all count towards fluids. So one tip you can start off with is by having the first thing on an empty stomach, having a warm water, warm lemon water, warm regular water, or a warm bitter tea, which I do the Mobby Yellow Doc. So that can be helpful as well as in wait, what's okay? Sorry, as well as drinking half your body weight in fluid ounces. Then when it comes to movement, not only do you have like simple walks after your meals, but also light stretching in the morning can be helpful, and also consistent daily movement in general. Then you have bitters, which helps to activate your digestion by also activating your bile flow. So not just your stomach acid and your enzymes, but also your bile flow. And so they help your body to process the food and move it through. Then you have prokinetics, which support the movement of food through your GI tract so that food does not stay stuck in your stomach longer for than it should have, or should be, or should in general. So you also have artichoke extract that can be used as a prokinetic or magnesium citrate. If you do magnesium citrate, it should be the pill form that does not have a laxative in it. So they help stimulate the natural wave-like motion of your intestines. Now, this is what I want to talk about when it comes to your motility. So, the MMC is your migrating motor complex, and it's basically your gut's cleanup wave. So, it basically sweeps leftover food and bacteria through your digestive tract between meals, but it only activates when you're not eating. So, if you're constantly snacking, your MMC never fully turns on, meaning that it's not really sweeping leftover food and bacteria through your digestive tract in between meals. So, that means that food can be getting stuck in your gut longer than it should, and that can be causing you to get constipated. So for me, even though I was eating every few hours, I was eating too much in one sitting, and so my MMC was most likely struggling because I was eating way too much food. So now I've decreased the amount that I eat. So I basically eat smaller, more frequent meals, and so when you leave 3 to 4 hours in between meals of not eating, your MMC can turn on and can actually do the job of sweeping leftover food through your digestive tract. So eating every 3 to 4 hours between meals is really important. And also avoid constant grazing throughout the day, because if you're constantly grazing on food throughout the day, your MMC cannot turn on. So it can basically cause sluggish digestion or motility. What also helps is to not eat 2 to 3 hours before bed. So my intuition was correct. And so this allows your MMC to work overnight to properly clear your gut. And so when your MMC is working, your motility improves, your bloating decreases, your constipation improves, and your bacterial overgrowth is less likely. And so this can be the missing piece for so many people, especially if you are incorporating fiber and hydration and movement and it's not working for you. It may be your MMC, so you can support that with these tips and also incorporating prokinetics and bitters as well. So when your body can actually go regularly, not forced, not dependent, but naturally, this is when you know that you have basically healed your motility to help you go to the bathroom more regularly, which in the long term would help to heal your body overall. So I know that the information in this episode is kind of repetitive, but repetition does help for people to understand things better and for things to land in their mind. And on top of that, I wanted to make sure that you have all the information that you need to naturally heal constipation and can help to support your gut health as well, so that you can use my podcast as a free tool to help you heal. So that basically concludes today's episode. So to try to summarize everything, if you deal with constipation, do an audit or an evaluation on your hydration, your movement, your fiber, your prokinetics, and something else. Your meal spacing, like do an audit on all the things that I mentioned in this podcast episode. You may have to listen to it twice, take notes, and do an audit on these areas of your life. See where you can improve and start improving one step at a time, not everything at once. And just from alleviating your constipation alone, you can notice a big difference in your mental health, your skin health, your reproductive health, your vaginal health. Some women can actually heal their chronic vaginal infections and hormonal imbalances on its own by just supporting your gut health. And so I hope and intend that this episode has helped you all. If you have any questions or comments and you're listening to us on Spotify, you can list comments down below. If you also have any podcast recommendations that you want me to create an episode on, let me know in the comments down below. And also, please make sure to rate the podcast, any stars that you want, or leave a review, because it does help for people to find my podcast. And also, if you follow the podcast, it also helps for Spotify to push out my podcast to other people as well. So that's it for today's episode. Everyone, have a good night and have fun pooping every single day now that you know what to do. If you want to work with me, the links to work with me are down below. Bye, everyone.